prayer.
Now you're ready.
Thank you. Father God, thank you for your presence this morning. We humbly come before you to ask for your guidance and wisdom in studying your word. We also come to you with a gracious heart for all those folks that you've helped out this past week with their illness and helping them recover. We ask for your continued blessings on all those who need your assistance in getting better, Lord, both spiritually and physically. We love you, we praise you, and we ask for your presence here this morning as we study your word, and it's in your Son, Jesus' name, that we pray these things. Amen. All right, so this morning I'm going to ask for your patience. I've got a totally blocked ear on this side, so I can't. I'm hearing things like I'm underwater basically this morning. But the other thing is, I'm feeling like whenever we get a little, I don't regret at all getting together and having fellowship. That's part of what we do, but it kind of knocks me off course a little bit as far as picking up the thread again. So have patience with me as we revisit where we left off, because I think, and we were discussing this beforehand, we still had some questions to answer on page 110 of our book, study guide. And the first question on 110 is, and again, we're covering chapter 17 and 18 of Revelation. The scene in chapter 17 opens with the image of a harlot. What does it mean to commit spiritual adultery? And before we do that, let's go back and look at how the scene opens up in 117. And one of the seven angels who had the seven bowls came and talked with me, saying to me, "Come, I will show you the judgment of the great harlot who sits on many waters, with whom the kings of the earth committed fornication, and the inhabitants of the earth were made drunk with the wine of her fornication." So we talked about that last time. Now we're confronted with the question of, what does it mean to commit spiritual adultery? In John McArthur's commentary, he says the following. And this is very thought-provoking. I want you all to think about this. And this, if you have the book, is between pages 156 and 157. Playing on people's religious bent, they energize religious deception. False religion's powerful appeal comes from its promise to satisfy man's longing for the spiritual realm without bringing him under God's authority. Now think about what he just said there. Longing for the spiritual realm without bringing him under God's authority. In their rebellion against the true God, and because of their love of sin, fallen men will willingly turn to these damning satanic religions. But wonderfully, graciously, mercifully, though man no longer seeks God, God still seeks man. Indeed, it was to seek and to save that which was lost, referring to Luke 19, verse 10, that Jesus came into the world. Because false religion is so much a part of this fallen world, it is no surprise that it will play a major role in the end times. During the tribulation, all the world's diverse false religions will be reunited into one great world religion. That ultimate expression of false religion will be an essential element of Antichrist's final world empire. Now, stop in there. Recall that in the first 3.5 years of the tribulation, this false religion comes into being. At that moment, before the Antichrist forces people into the false religion, everyone willingly goes into the false religion. So, getting back to question 1 again, the scene in chapter 17 opens with the image of a harlot. What does it mean to commit spiritual adultery?
Being unfaithful to God.
Being unfaithful to God, but also subverting his position isn't it? Like you most of you have been in here when Randy's doing his studies on heresies. Think back to what he said about heretical viewpoints on specifically whether Jesus was equal with God. Remember his discussion on that? My question to him afterwards was, Randy, why did this come about in the church? And his answer was simple. Mankind's always been trying to subvert God and his prime position, right? We're always trying to move up above God, just like Satan did, right? So false religions are set up. First of all, why are we attracted to religion to begin with?
Answers questions. It answers questions.
Right, it answers questions, but also it fills that need that we have in our heart, right? We have a hole specifically to be filled by the Creator. And when we don't fill that hole with the Creator, what do we fill it with?
Same.
Yeah, right. We're chasing after something else. We're trying to put something else above God. I hope you all remember where this all started back in the Tower of Babel, when man tried to come together to build something that would put him above God, right? This has been the theme over and over and over again. And when we get to this part in Revelation, it talks about how it all comes to fulfillment, that God is once again asserting his sovereignty, right? This is about asserting sovereignty, taking back his position as our sovereign God. So to answer the question, when chapter 17 opens with the image of a harlot, what does it mean to commit spiritual adultery? And we've somewhat answered that. We're looking to put ourselves over God. What title did John see written on, and we talked about this last 2 weeks ago. What title did John see written on the harlot's forehead, and what does it mean?
Mother of harlots is written.
I can't hear because I'm blocked in one.
Mother of harlots is
Yeah.
what.
Yeah. And what was the first word?
Babylon the Great.
Mystery Babylon,
Mystery.
right? Mystery Babylon. So, Babylon the Great, the mother of harlots and of the abominations of the earth, how can the future religious Babylon be the mother of all false religion? To comprehend the Babylonian false religion of the future requires an understanding of Babylon's role in the false religion of the past. The story of Babylon begins with the Tower of Babel, recorded in Genesis 11, 1 through 9. Now the whole earth used the same language and the same words. It came about as they journeyed east that they... Think about that. Everybody used the same language and the same words. And what did God do to confound them? Everybody had a different language after that. Everybody was disunited due to their sin. Their sin broke up that unity. It came about as they journeyed east that they found a plain in the land of Shinar and set there. They said to one another, "Come, let us make bricks and burn them thoroughly." And they used brick for stone, and they used tar for mortar. They said, "Come, let us build for ourselves a city and a tower whose top will reach into heaven. And let us make for ourselves a name. Otherwise, we will be scattered abroad over the face of the whole earth." The Lord came down to see the city and the tower, which the sons of men had built. What did Jesus call himself? Y'all remember? Son of Man? Remember, that's echoing Daniel. Daniel referred to the Son of Man. So I think it's interesting. The sons of men had built. The Lord said, "Behold, they are one people, and they all have the same language." And this is what they began to do. And now nothing which they purpose to do will be impossible for them. Come, let us go down and there confuse their language, that they may not understand one another's speech. So the Lord scattered them abroad from there over the face of the whole earth, and they stopped building the city. Therefore its name was called Babel, because there the Lord confused the language of the whole earth. And from there, the Lord scattered them abroad over the face of the whole earth. So, and then he ties in Noah's journey, journeying east after the flood. Noah's descendants arrived at the site of Babylon, the land of Shinar. In history's first great humanistic effort, they decided to build a monument to themselves to make for themselves a name. But this act of rebellion against God also had religious implications. And then he goes into the history of ziggurats and the Sumerians, and that's, see, the thing is, this has been going on. This is a repetitive theme. Every time you see history within nature play out over and over and over again, stop and think about, why is this happening? Because it's a pattern. It just reminds me of what Solomon said, there's nothing new under the sun. So listen to those words and think about whenever you start seeing patterns, what does this mean? So what do you think the title on the harlot's forehead, what does it mean? Keep in mind that the prostitutes during the Roman Empire were tagged with their names on their foreheads. It was part of their license to practice, I guess. It identified them, so you knew clearly what you were getting into when you went up and talked to or to try to transact with one of these people. You knew what was going to happen. Now, having said that, when the name is plainly visible on the harlot's forehead, why is that important? And think about false religion. Why is that important? Oh, let me ask it another way. Why can't people see false religion for being false religion?
Is that a reason the first word was mystery was not part of her name, was not part of the name?
Right, yeah.
But is that answering your question?
No, actually I was getting more toward, it's obvious that this is who the harlot is. Why not try to hide it? Why don't, really, if you think about it, false religions don't try to hide it either. Why is that?
They flaunt sin.
Yes, that's it. It's our nature. It's in all of our nature. Even those who are saved, and Paul said this, he does not do what he does what he does not want to do. It's in all of our nature. It's the hook that Satan has in all of us, right? So, having said that, and then juxtaposing that with the fact that we're called God's bondservants, right? We're his servants. How is it that others can't see what we can see? I mean, why is it that it's not obvious to everybody, hey, this is not right? I mean, let's stop and think about all the things that are going on right now that are clearly not right. I mean, we're seeing this. We don't have to discuss this in Sunday school. We just have to turn on the TV. We have to talk to our kids that just came back from school that day. We have to just look at what the major topics are in society. All we have to do is look at the flags that people are flying now, which at one point represented God's covenant with us. Now they've mocked it and made it into something else. So why is it so obvious to us but not obvious to them? And we've discussed some of that. It's our nature. But is there something more than that?
Well, God only reveals those who will listen, or those he knows that are his. He only reveals certain things.
We know the voice of our shepherd. Yeah, and they're not hearing that voice at all. It's kind of obvious, but it's also kind of scary, don't you think? Is anybody else here a little frustrated or scared by the fact that it could even hit close to home? Like our kids, they went off to college, they're telling us things that we know not to be true. It's very disconcerting how easily we can be fooled. And it's out in the open. It's not, hide the ball. It's out in the open, folks. This is what I'm trying to say. This answers the question. It's right across her head. There's no
It's like, why are the churches splitting? Why are there problems in our churches?
Right.
People Something's happened that they're led away.
That something's happened, that they're led away. I love that language, led away. When I think of that, I think of the exile. You know, how the captives were taken back to Babylon. They were led away, right? And last 2 weeks ago, we were talking about something I was mulling over in Abram's journey, you know, up to Haran and then down. He had down to Canaan. Was the same journey in reverse that all the people took that were led away into exile back to Babylon, back to the source of this sinful activity, and they were led away. You know, and I'm Jane. I think I agree. I'm seeing people being led away. But the question is it by force? I mean, basically, the exile was a forceful extraction, and this seems to be that these people have been, you know, they've just allowed themselves to be led away.
Satan has gotten such a grip upon so much of society that it's not forced.
Right.
I mean, these people are willingly going, just like those in Revelation, you know, just would not turn back. They willingly stayed with the false gods.
Glenda, that's what scares me, because the first 3.5 years of the 7-year tribulation deal with their willingness to allow themselves to be deceived. But the second 3.5 years, what happens? It's forced. Remember that saying I said where I didn't come up with it. This has been going around for years. But you can vote your way into communism, but you have to shoot your way out. You know, at first you're being deceived and you're allowing yourself to be deceived, and you can go and pull the lever in the voting booth or, you know, fill out your card or what have you. But the second phase, you know, it's not that easy to get out of it.
You're already there. Because if you're in the workplace, you have to be complicit.
Mm-hmm.
You don't have a choice.
That's 100% accurate.
And I do it every day.
Mm-hmm.
I defend what's wrong, because if I don't, I'm in trouble.
Yeah. And we're going to come to a part later on in chapter 18 in Revelation where we hear the angels calling, come out, all of those who belong to the Creator, come out of Babylon, come out. You know, we're being told at the very end, when the final trumpet blows, and you hear, come out of Babylon. It's not meant that the ones that are left in Babylon, that it's not meant for them to suffer with the rest of them. So sometimes I think maybe we're being asked to come out right now, come out of that system, come out of it as much as you can, you know, because you can't completely extract yourself. And you know, when you get to this stage, there are some things that are still hidden that you don't know about. Because this has been going on for how long? I would say it's been going on ever since the Tower of Babylon. I think it's been going on for a long time. Go ahead.
There's a little chart thing here in my Bible. It says, how can a person keep away from the evil system? Here are some suggestions. Number 1, people must always be more important than products. Number 2, keep away from pride in your own programs, plans, and successes. Number 3, remember that God's will and the Word must never be compromised. Number 4, people must always be considered above the making of money. Number 5, do what is right no matter what the cost. Number 6, be involved in businesses that provide worthwhile products or services, not just things that feed the world's desires.
Can you go back to number 2?
Keep away from the pride of your own programs, plans, and successes.
Someone's got to explain time out.
What happens when we're focused on our own plans and successes?
We're not focused on God.
We're not focused on God.
But if we're focusing on God's plan,
Yeah.
That's different. It's not your own.
but
Are you saying what is-
He was saying, I focus in the workplace on what I think is God's
Right.
plan. I'm out there pushing something that I'm not allowed to do.
Right. Oh gosh, I forget where I referenced this, but I'm just going to go out here with it. I think it was in the commentary later on. I think it might have been under chapter 19. But anyway, one of the things, I always go back to what would Jesus do? Or what did Jesus do? When he was confronted with what we're confronted with, what was oftentimes his response? When confronted with the evils of the world.
Devil, get behind me?
Well, yeah, that's part of it.
Silence.
Thank you.
Silence. He was silent.
Thank
He did
you.
not argue with them.
That's it right there. That's, Glenda, that is it. It's over and over and over again. He reacted with silence. Why do you think that is?
Because he knew words were not going to change people, and only actions were the only way that people would
Exactly. Exactly.
If you don't speak up, that's evil.
Well, let's
What is the saying?
let's review two examples of where Jesus stayed silent. One of them is my all-time favorite verse in the Bible. It's under chapter 18, verse 33, when Pilate asked him, "What is truth?" What did Jesus do?
Turn the question.
He didn't say anything.
Oh, I thought he turned it around.
No, remember everything in the Bible that he said. Well, in the King James Bible, it's in red. There was no red after that. The red was in his action. It was in his blood. He stayed zip. Nothing else. Went to the cross, died for our sins. He answered the question, what is truth? But he didn't answer it in deceptive words. He answered it in actions. Right? Second big time, and we've already covered this, way in which he answered in silence. What happened when they were trying to trick him into condoning the stoning of the woman? What did he do?
He waited.
He waited. He had his head down and he was drawing in the dirt, right?
Sam said he was scribbling.
Yeah.
Give him time.
Right. But he didn't jump right out there and give them what they wanted. Now this gets to what we're saying. When you're forced into saying something in public, perhaps the best way to handle it is with silence.
I think what Perry was thinking though when he asked the question is, they asked him who he was.
Mhm.
He said, and so you say that's who I am?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he did. Like, right. He rephrased the question, or better than rephrasing the question, he actually took the focus off of where they wanted it and put it onto something else. So, I mean, I don't know if that helps you, Perry, because that's really difficult to answer that question. We're not in your shoes, okay? And I'm not going to make a flippant response.
Thank you. If a wise man, well, isn't there a saying, if a wise man is quiet, evil prevails? And so, I know I'm supposed to be silent, but if I'm silent, I would still be at the Methodist Church.
Right. Well, but no, you wouldn't. See, you voted with your feet.
I did, but
You didn't get up and make a pronouncement from the pulpit, did you?
not from the pulpit.
Right.
Or even from your seat in the
But even
sanctuary.
from your seat, you didn't get up and start talking to him or her in the middle of the
No,
service.
no.
Although some of us wish we had. But
I feel bad about it.
well, no, I don't. I'll tell you, you bring up a good point in that sometimes we do have to respond. Let's think back in situations where a response was required. Let's think back to the martyrs when they were asked to basically reject their faith in the middle of the Colosseum. And they did. Now, some of them just responded with silence and then later on paid for it, But what else? To answer your question, in situations where a response is required, what would be in your mouth? And think about Peter. Think about how Peter before the Sanhedrin responded. He did respond. What did he do? And Stephen, for that matter, if you're confused. When Stephen was before the Sanhedrin, both Peter and Stephen, what did they do? They answered the Sanhedrin, but what authority did they put above the Sanhedrin? They put the name of Jesus above the Sanhedrin. Same with the martyrs, right? So what I'm saying is, sometimes it's better not to say anything at all, and sometimes you have to make a stand. And why? What's the difference? What's the difference between those two?
I think of it, and I don't know that I should admit it here, but I'm a hiring manager, and of course, working for Lockheed, we get all sorts of directives on where we need to put our focus.
Mm-hmm.
I just let them go on their spiel,
Yeah,
and then I'll focus on the skill sets and personality traits I want.
yeah.
That's
So-
safe. Yeah, that's good. 'Cause
Don't tell anybody.
Yeah, you can't just throw that out there. I mean, there's certain things we look
I have to
at
consider
when we
security
hire.
things, this
and,
it's-
It starts so young, though. I mean, I got in trouble this week. I got called in the office because I refused to allow the children to do some things, and I was told, no. You don't, it's all about them.
Mhm.
And it's very narcissistic. He can leave your room anytime he wants.
Mhm.
And if he raises his hand to go call his mother, you say yes. And if he does this, you say yes. So they're making the children totally in control. And the kid actually basically, my 504 says I can call my mother, and got up and left. Well, then they said they accused me of his outburst when he attacked a child because I did not allow him to
Did you?
leave the room. No,
Sure.
I did not attack that child. And he nearly hurt a child.
There's a lot of that.
And there's a lot of that, and we have to have a place in our rooms, and I refuse to do it. For them to have a corner, if they don't like the lesson or feel pressure or don't understand, they can go off in the corner to the safe spot.
Yeah.
I don't have a safe spot,
Okay,
but I get written up.
Same way in your situation?
That's just kind of how education has
I get written up.
turned.
I get a no because I refuse to put a sign that says, here's your safe spot. And if I say anything against anything, if you have a kid with two moms,
Mhm.
a kid with two dads, and all of that, you just compliment them and reward them, and you raise them up. You don't put them down because they're different. You raise them up.
And even in the way we're told to teach,
Oh.
we're given literally like a script.
Yep.
And we're teaching a fourth grade script to somebody who reads at a kindergarten level. We know that's not right, but we have to do it. That's what we're told to do,
Well, if we're going to use scripts, why not use robots, huh?
Yeah.
right?
Well, and it's so ridiculous.
Well, they're getting ready to.
You can offer bicycles, candy, anything you want, but the thing that children want most is a 100
Yeah.
Mhm.
curriculum. But our curriculum, exactly what she said, so far above the children, they are so frustrated that we can provide them all these toys and parties and treats. All you have to do is keep giving them 100s and they're fine. But I don't have the curriculum to do that.
They just need to learn how to read.
And they fight, and we're losing. And we went to the high school for the Christmas spectacular or something, I don't know. And it shocked me that the song they sang the loudest in full volume was All I Want for Christmas. It's all about me,
Mhm.
my feelings, and how I feel. And that's sinful to me.
Yeah.
That's a sin. We're teaching them pride and narcissism, and like you said, we need to be silent, but I don't want to be silent.
Well, I say we should be silent in certain situations, and let's get back to that. How do you know when to be silent and when not
That's
to?
a good question.
So the question then revolves around who the audience is, doesn't it? I mean, if it's talking to someone who's trying to trick you or coerce you into a certain answer, is that worthy of your response, your verbal response? Or would you stay silent? Like, obviously, when you look back, Jesus' audience being aggressive toward him, it's even stated spies of the Pharisees, basically. He knew exactly what was in their heart. Now, you and I, we can look at people and not know what's in their heart, so it's much harder to do. But Jesus knew what was in their heart, and he knew what they were trying to do, right?
Well, I think we need to just try to be in closer proximity to the Holy Spirit. And
Yes.
let the Holy Spirit guide
Equip us.
when to speak and when to be
And
silent.
I fell at that.
Yeah.
because I immediately go to my fake redhead temper.
And it's hard not to, it's hard not to.
It's hard not
It's
to.
hard not to, but I think if we were in tune as we need to be to the Holy Spirit, then it will direct us.
I agree completely, and I'm going to tell you something. We are going to get into the next study in Romans. I have a stumbling block in Romans chapter 13, and if you don't know, if you don't have that written down, basically that's where Paul is telling us that we need to be obedient to the government.
Oh,
Okay, I have a stumbling block with that because that's been twisted into a doctrine of the right of kings. You know, how whatever the king said, that's what we're supposed to do. And my rebuttal to that, and I think John McArthur has since changed his view, but he was basically all down the line on that. And that's what you're getting into in the school system and in the commercial applications of what you have to abide by. Ultimately, that's the government coming down and saying, this is what you must do, correct? So how does Paul deal with that in Romans 13? It's, obey the government, but let's go back and look and see what Jesus did again. My rebuttal would be, what was required when paying taxes? When they came to him and said, they came to Jesus and said, is it rightful, should we pay our taxes, right? And we all know that system was corrupt. It wasn't based, even on today's standards, it would have seemed corrupt because they just took whatever. It was an arbitrary amount. They'd grab you up off the street and say, hey, you got to pay Caesar his taxes. So it was a shakedown, basically, right? So when they asked Jesus, well, should we pay this? What did he say?
give to Caesar.
Render to Caesar what is Caesar's. Give to God what is God's, right? So I tell you the same. When you're in your position and you're being told by the government, we're just going to call it the government, what to do, render to Caesar what is Caesar's and render to God what is God's. I know that's really hard, but because then you're wondering, well, where do you draw the line? And that's where John McArthur came down after the pandemic because they tried to close his church. That's one of the reasons why we're doing John McArthur studies, because he shows courage and bravery. And basically, just like Randy, he stayed open. He didn't listen to the authorities. Because why? Because that's not the government. That's God's. Render to God what is God's. Render to Caesar what is Caesar's. Do you see, as we're going through Revelation, how that's going to be tested? The closer we get to the very end, the harder it's going to be. It really is. So, how much more time do we have? Okay, we have some time to get into some more of these questions. This is chapter 18. We need to cover this. How do the kings and merchants respond upon hearing the news of Babylon's destruction in chapter 18? And in what did they have their security? This is the other key issue I want to get into this morning.
Well, I think they thought that power was the ultimate thing that held security for them.
Right.
It was all about power.
It was not all about just power. Well, let's read some of chapter 18 and see when Babylon falls what the merchants say, because I'm reading on page 174 of this commentary, and the merchants of the earth weep and mourn over her because no one buys their cargoes anymore. Cargoes of gold and silver and precious stones and pearls and fine linen and purple and silk and scarlet and every kind of citron wood and every article of ivory and every article made from very costly wood and bronze and iron and marble and cinnamon and spice and incense and perfume and frankincense and wine and olive oil and fine flour and wheat. And by the way, who buys these things? People with money? What's going on in this country? I mean,
Lost their will.
yeah, I mean, the merchants have been making money off of selling to people with purchasing power in this country, right? Because think about where we're getting all of our goods and services from. Are they from countries that are as wealthy as us, or wanting to be as wealthy as us? Wanting to be, right? So when Babylon fell, and I'm not making any parallels here, although you could. When Babylon fell, who was most disappointed? I mean, these are the merchants. The merchants of these things who became rich from her will stand at a distance because of the fear of her torment, weeping and mourning, saying, "Woe, woe, the great city, she who was clothed in fine linen and purple and scarlet and adorned with gold and precious stones and pearls. For in 1 hour such great wealth has been laid waste." And every shipmaster and every passenger and sailor and as many as making their living by the sea stood at a distance and were crying out as they saw the smoke of her burning, saying, "What city is like the great city?" And they threw dust on their heads and were crying out, weeping and mourning, saying, "Woe, woe, the great city in which all who had ships at sea became rich by her wealth, for in 1 hour she has been laid waste." Wow.
Do you give credence to the people who speak of the mystery of Babylon as America?
Yeah, I do.
I do.
I do, because I see it. I don't know. I'm sorry, but when it's this in your face, it's kind of like, what else could they be talking about? Now, they could be talking about a transition that's yet to happen. Maybe we're just a transitional country and there's some other, maybe it all goes back to the Middle East. We don't know. I mean, and that's part of the reason why mystery is attached to the name. We don't really know. And so it's important not to say 100% I believe that the U.S. is Babylon. I can't do that. But what I'm looking for is kind of what MacArthur does in his studies. He says, don't look at it like a particular person or place. Look at it like a force. And is the force evident here in this country? It is, isn't it? I mean, it's a transition from the spiritual to what? The commercial. The commercial is the controlling power at the end. It's not the religious as much as it is the commercial at the end. So there was some commentary. Let me see if I can find it, because he actually addressed this about how I didn't flag this. Well, anyway, let me just tell you what MacArthur said. The commercial is the controlling factor in chapter 18 of Revelation. The emphasis is off of the spiritual and on the commercial. And he wrote it down, but he's got it scattered throughout the commentary here. Do y'all see how, well, y'all have been discussing this morning, how commercial can affect what we think and believe? What do you see prevalent? Let me just stop with the commentary and just ask you this. What do you see going on in the new technology and what they're trying, does anybody see them trying to push us into anything right now?
Are you sitting in drums in New Jersey?
Asking him.
I knew it.
I'd like to have a drone. I didn't say that.
What y'all are doing there, secret, I don't, AI is terrifying.
I imagine where Tyler sits, he can see more than most of us.
I'm not a fan of AI.
Yeah.
I'm not either, and you know what? It's all in our school, everywhere.
They
Mhm.
encourage us to
They
use it.
want us, and one day, we were fighting over a question. And one teacher typed in the question, I typed in the question, got totally different answers.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, it was physics, and you can always play with physics, but they want the kids on it, they want everybody to check with it. We had some tests that were written by AI. Did you see the literature ones? Yeah. They were terrible.
Really?
Really.
Wow.
And you can pick it out. You can see it.
What's the difference? How can you pick it out?
If you look at two pieces, one it was written by a person, one was
Yeah.
written out, just do it. It's on the internet. Just do it. You can pick them out.
Just the wording.
Just the
and
wording.
A lot of the AI
Like, people don't talk that
stuff,
way.
a lot of the AI stuff has the same tone,
Yep.
same flow, same pace.
So when a kid writes something and they copy it from AI, you use it. And you don't think 10-year-olds don't know how to do it.
So how many of you think that they're listening to us through our phones?
Oh, I know they are.
Oh, yes.
On the way home when we talk, because we always fight about what I have to go buy mother for lunch. And it will pop up on my phone. I say, well, you win.
Yeah.
It says Subway.
I want y'all to run this exercise sometime this week. Between you and your partner, your family member, or whoever, just casually mention John Deere tractors. Talk about the John Deere company and how great it is and everything. See what rolls up on.
Why did you pick John Deere? Or you don't want to tell us?
No, just out. Well, actually, I was talking to someone about John Deere, and then all of a sudden, for the next week straight, I was just getting ads for John Deere.
I saw something where somebody had no kids, they were young, they just started talking about babies and diapers.
Mhm.
That's something they would not normally talk about. And they were getting all this stuff about babies.
And I think it hits certain people because I don't have that happen to me, but it happens to him. It happens to a guy that I work with. He'll be talking about ordering parts for a machine we have, and next thing you know, there it is on his Facebook feed or whatever, you know.
I always suspected it, but when they started banning cell phones from our meetings, you couldn't even take them in the room.
Yeah, there you go. That answered that question, didn't it? Yeah.
And I saw something that said if you're using an app that you don't pay for, you're the product.
That's
Very much so.
that's truth that just hits you right between the eyes.
And it's funny that if you go to a doctor and you fill out, you're going to a new doctor and you're filling out something, all of a sudden you're getting these ads, these Google ads, like on your emails. You're getting all these ads for medications.
Yeah. This is off topic, but have you ever noticed now when they come out with the new product, the new drug or whatever, it looks like AI came up with the name. There's no human that would have come up with that name because it's so twisted. It's like they took a bunch of consonants and syllables out of the, and just rearranged them randomly, and that's what what the name of the drug is. It doesn't make any sense.
I never understood why they did that, and then they had another name that you can pronounce.
Right.
Why would you give it two names?
Yeah.
We had a child who AI generated her body, and it looked like it was pornography.
Really.
And the poor girl, we had to deal with the phone and the fact that she was 11 and was she at her dad's house or her mom's house, and was this real? And it was AI.
Well,
And where the father or stepfather was going to be accused of something bad. And when it was nobody's fault but the computer.
with all the data that they've collected on us, knowing our preferences, who we are, what our proclivities are, don't you think it'd be easy if they didn't like what we said to maybe gather together enough data points and put it into AI and make it sound like something that you just said right there.
They're already doing it. I don't remember where it was, but they basically had thought police and they were using AI, very much like the movie Minority Report,
Yeah.
just using historical data points gathered from people's online activity.
Well, look at all the movies, Enemy of the State, Minority Report, all of this stuff. It's coming true, isn't it? I mean, it's not being used for benevolent purposes, is it? What is it being used for instead? It's being used for control. It's being used for control. So if you think that you have a freedom to speak or freedom to associate, freedom to assemble for religious purposes or otherwise, how much of that's going to be knocked back by what we're seeing? I mean, how much of it is going to be frowned upon, in the AI theater? Like, ooh, let's dissuade you from going to church next Sunday, or let's dissuade you from saying those things. How close are we to that? You're seeing it right now in your classroom, Perry. You're seeing it in your classroom. How much longer will it be before we're all in your classroom?
Y'all better sit down.
Yeah.
For me, from my perspective, I see it already happen. I mean, take the elections, for example. How many of the fact checkers were out there just making blatant lies?
Mhm.
Were biased in their direction. I mean, they're already trying to steer the conversation and keep everybody down the path they want.
Well, and I'd heard, and I have no reason to doubt this, that all those that they swept up in the J6 trap
Yeah.
were basically trapped by their phones. They geofenced them.
Oh,
Their pings from their phone told them that they were within the vicinity of the White House. Whether or not they were or not, their phone was enough evidence for them to be charged and prosecuted for being a part of the mob.
that's scary.
I can't believe that happened here in the United States.
And then there were some people that just happened to be in D.C. They
Yeah.
used their credit card somewhere, and they got them for that.
Yeah.
It just,
Let me ask you this, if my phone is off.
It's never off.
It's never off. He's right. Even those,
If I crush it with a hammer,
a couple
You got a
things.
shot.
if I'm Hillary, will it be off?
Even those Mylar bags that they say you can put the phone in the Mylar bag, it doesn't
The
work.
children do that in Davos.
But
That's how they go in the building, but it's not off.
I tried that, and my phone still rang through the bag.
Oh.
So I know that bag wasn't all that, right? So I think
They're
you.
not allowed to go in the building without, they put them in a lock bag.
Oh,
But the principal, if there's a shooting or whatever, he can unlock all the bags at once. And then they can get on
Are
the phone.
they in the room?
Which would be, they carry them in their backpack in
Oh,
that
okay.
bag,
Yeah.
but they can't get on during the day, which
Gotcha.
sounds good, but
so they can.
I don't want
electronically-
parents called if there's a disaster anyway, they'll be in the way.
Yeah.
And they'll hinder the safety of the children. I have written so many times to the school board and sent individual letters to the school board members of how dangerous the phones are in the school.
Yeah.
And I got 3 behind me, but it's just ridiculous.
I'm going to say one other thing, and we're going to turn it back to Susan. But the batteries in the phones and the electronics, the lithium batteries, folks. Have you ever thought that if we ever did have a solar flare or something like that, and the electronics popped, what might happen to those lithium batteries? I mean,
They exploded.
yeah, they
The
explode.
hobby industry's known about it forever, and then they started putting them in everything.
Yeah.
Why do they explode on planes? You always hear about a battery on a plane, but you never hear about them happening in church.
Well, but see, if you have an EMP.
Sitting in a pouch
Oh.
because of the pressure changes.
Oh, the pressure.
Yeah.
That should have been my thought.
If you have a solar flare or an EMP that corrupts the electronics and short circuits it, and it goes to impact the lithium battery, think about all the places we have lithium batteries now. You know those scooters that are blowing up in New York City because they're using those on their bikes and, the lithium batteries?
Yeah.
The pager attack.
Yeah, the pager attack. Thank you. They say that there was some plastic explosives in there, but I
Yeah,
don't.
the battery.
Yeah, the battery, exactly. The lithium is big enough.
Did you see where the lithium was, the big mine of lithium supposedly is under where the flood was in
Yeah.
Carolina?
Carolina, yeah, I've
And
seen
they had
that.
already bought the land in Tennessee to process it, the building.
Yeah,
And so suddenly that's all destroyed so BlackRock can buy it.
yeah. Well, Hawaii,
And why? What happened there?
what happened to Hawaii? Now all of a sudden you got all this cheap real estate, right?
That was-
Susan, I'm sorry I ran over you when you were saying
We were
something.
thinking very loudly.
No, I didn't say.
Okay, all right. I want to,
No? You know I'm
Help me with this, okay? You're talking about all these things, and how does that relate to the situation? Remember when we had to beat the swords into plowshares?
right.
So, George, can you relate to that? Is this, are we gonna take the phones and or this technology and convert them into something that will actually help humanity? And that's what the swords went to in the plowshares, and that happened.
That's possible. That's a really,
I'd say throwing them away is the equivalent to that,
yeah.
because then it's no longer got any control or hold. So,
Yeah, I didn't even think about that, Freddie, except that whatever the devil means for evil, God will turn to good, is one of those things that comes to mind. I want to show you something. I just want to walk this around the room. Y'all
Now,
have
that's
seen this.
100 I've never seen.
Y'all have seen this metallic band before?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. The band? All right.
Is that new?
It's been in bills a long time.
Yeah. Do you know what that does when you pull up to a stoplight?
No.
Now, I'm getting to it because I didn't know this. But you remember how they put those cameras up there during that program, that short-lived program where they would catch your picture and, send you a ticket for running a red light. Those are still up there, right? But you know what they're tracking now? Those magnetic bands on your $100 bills.
But for what purpose?
They can tell if you're they say they can tell if you're running drugs or something like that. But when you get stopped, and if they were to ask you how much currency do you have on you, better tell the truth because they already know.
yeah,
Is it
civil
just
asset
on
forfeiture,
hundreds?
they'll just take it.
Pardon me?
Is it just on hundreds or?
Anything
No.
that's got that metallic band on
I think
it.
it's on 20s and everything.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
thought that it was on 20s as well.
Let's see if I have.
So,
You gotta get your money out.
so they're tracking not just your phones, they're tracking your cash.
Part of me says, I don't care if they track me. I have nothing to hide. But just the idea of it, the whole cell phone thing, my students make so much fun of me because I will not answer it. I will not talk on it.
Right.
If I see a 936, I might pick it up. And I always say, Swindle's residence, and they go, what? They look, but, and the principal gets mad because I don't check my texts.
Well, y'all probably don't know, or maybe you do, that just this last year there was a major hack of your identity information, basically. They have your socials. They've got everything. It's on the dark web.
Your Lufkin was hacked.
And I was told, it's more than half the country. I was told that I signed up with one of these data breach services, and they said, yeah, your information's on the dark web. So one of the things you can do, and we'd better hurry up because they're looking in here now, but one of the things that you can do is put a freeze on your credit reports so that someone can't just call up and pretend they're you and take out a line of credit. That's one of the things that I'll recommend you do because you can always release it. You can temporarily unfreeze it, but it puts the power back in your hands.